I'm John from Mesmo. I'll be doing a quick talk on streaming telemetry data, how the SRE team at Mesmo had a high cardinality metric problem and how we used our telemetry pipeline, and also what our telemetry pipeline is. Let's see. So quick agenda is intro. I'll talk about the problem, the vision. Sorry, I'm retro with the cliche memes, and the execution and what we want for future state for our metrics. I'm John. I'm a SRE here at Mesmo. I've been there since 2022. Great team. App support, DBA to an SRE role, startup, and I was a DBA at iHeart for a while, and now I'm here at Mesmo. And I'm sure everybody here is the family IT support, right? So what the heck is Mesmo? We offer two solutions, a telemetry pipeline and a logging solution, right? For your metrics, your logs, traces. We were founded in 2015 as LogDNA, primarily as a logging solution. Cool note is that since 2018, Mesmo has been the primary logging solution for IBM Cloud worldwide, Great Britain, Sydney, all over. Pretty cool. So what the heck is a telemetry pipeline? So everybody here is probably familiar with a CI/CD pipeline, right? Where the source of a CI/CD pipeline is code, and it goes through a number of processes, and it can go to one or many destinations, right? It could be an image to a container repo or to an artifact repository, S3. So what a CI/CD pipeline is for code, that's what Mesmo pipeline is for telemetry data, your metrics, traces, and logs, right? So it has many sources, one or many things can happen in the middle, and they can go to transformed, and they can go to many destinations. So you have to read all of these real quick. So I just want to highlight here how many sources, processors, and destinations that we have, right? Some key ones for our sources are like Kafka. Of course, so you have our Mesmo agent, but we have integrations for all of the open telemetry types. Of course, there's Datadog, right? Even webhooks, and what was the other one I wanted to highlight? Yeah, AWS CloudWatch, right? And then same thing with the destinations, very similar to the sources, right? But you can go pretty much anywhere. And where I think our meat and potatoes is, and where we can do some really cool stuff, is in our processors. For the talk today, right, the cardinality processor limit, but you can do anything from filter, create new metrics, create new events. You can reduce, redact metrics, and then you can send them anywhere, right? So I wanted to also mention our good old-fashioned logs, because they're pretty cool. And this is an example of when you send your logs to us, we enrich them automatically on the fly, particularly things like Kubernetes. So when your log hits there, we generate these, add these labels, and they're automatically. Pretty cool logs. We've been doing it for a while, so I just wanted to mention it. But for the problem, I think everybody here knows what high cardinality metrics is, but just for fullness, right? High cardinality metrics in general is a metric that has a bunch of values for one of its labels or a bunch of labels, right? And as we all know, handling those both cost-wise, financially, and computationally is pretty hard, right? So the problem that we had is we identified some high cardinality metrics and that had some low value, right? So how did we handle those? We still wanted them, but our primary logging solution or our platform is SREday. So all of our critical metrics and telemetry data, alerts, all of it, if we had to troubleshoot an incident, SREday is our go-to. But these are costly, right? And how to reduce the cost for some of those high cardinality, low value metrics. So we thought, okay, we can maybe use and we wanted to go to the open telemetry collector and agent. And we also wanted to be more flexible so if SREday is our primary observability platform, and then we want to maybe siphon off these high cardinalities and still keep them and use them, right? What other backends are out there? And then how can we quickly, instead of if you've messed with Prometheus configs before, right? It's a pain in the arse to cipher off those metrics and send them somewhere else, right? That Prometheus code is mind-boggling sometimes. And this gives you the ability to be more flexible with those backends. So here was our current. So what we did is that we implemented, everybody's probably familiar with this, right? Prometheus scraping Grafana backed for all of our environments, real quick and dirty, gives us the ability to keep those metrics and still view them if we wanted to. And it was alongside the SREday agent and sending those to SREday, right? But the problem here is that we now have multiple ways of scraping, handling, and visualizing metrics. So we wanted to use the pipeline to consolidate those Prometheus instances, right? So how do we herd all of these crazy things, Grafana, SREday, Prometheus? So here's a vision. So we wanted to install the OTel collector, replace all of the Prometheus instances, and then now in each environment, we have OTel collector in each environment for all of the metrics that we were collecting, sending straight to the pipeline, right? So it's still alongside the SREday agent right now, right? But now it gives us the ability to consolidate all of those Prometheus instances and manage our metrics through our pipeline. I like that, dude. So once we did that, we had 600 to 700 megabytes of data going through the pipeline. This is multiple workloads on multiple clusters in multiple environments, siphoning off and scraping and sending it through one pipeline. So as I mentioned, open telemetry on every node, and it was scraping, I think at one time, was scraping the same amount of metrics that SREday agent was, and they're our whole provider, right? So one cool thing about the OTel agent is now where our agent was just scraping logs, right? As we expand and we get more flexible with the OTel metrics, all of the stuff that we want to do is all in the OTel agent, right? So anything that it throws at us, we can handle with the OTel agent. So in our pipeline, this is where the power is. It gives us the ability to really control our metrics, right? Whereas when we had it in the SREday agent, we were limited to some degree on what metrics we sent. And the pipeline gives us the ability to manage the metrics internally, and also gives us the ability to switch backends if we want to. Oh yeah, so there was a limit on the SREday agent where, and maybe this is for some others, right? But there's a limitation on each agent on each Kubernetes node to how many metrics you could send, right? So that was on top of trying to manage high-cardinality metrics. So if there was an agent running on one of the nodes and all of a sudden we hit a limit, it stopped sending metrics. So you had to either replace it or we had to go pay more money to get more metrics, right? To avoid having to mess with that, we went to OTel. But now, again, the power comes in. We get to handle our metrics in our pipeline internally, us as SREs. For the future, I know it's way past 2000, but I always hear that voice when I hear the future. I don't know if you guys know what that is. So the future is to completely go away from the SREday agent, right? SREday's great, but we want to be able to handle our metrics the way we want to. And that's what the OTel collector gives us. And obviously the pipeline gives us the ability to change multiple backends. And as we start messing with traces, right? And what if we want to configure Jaeger to visualize those traces, right? As opposed to going into the configurations and changing the destinations, which is horrible, right? PRs and testing, right? You can do that on the fly simply within the pipeline configuration. And we recently started messing with AI, and there was a tool called Phoenix. So you guys know what Phoenix is to AI observability? Anyways, it's similar to visualizing Grafana, but for AI. It looks like a Jaeger traces, but in AI, you can see how it's reasoning. And as we get better with that, pipeline will give us the ability to quickly visualize those tools and those metrics emitting from AI. So in end, what the pipeline does for us is it gives ability to not only control your metrics, but be versatile in where their metrics goes quickly without having to do configurations. And not only that, add volume, right? Because technically you could go and maybe do your own transforming in one little agent or something like that, right? But can you handle the volume that the pipeline does? And that's it.